We're going to read Joel 3:1-10. It says, for behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations. That word there is goy, or Gentiles. I will gather all the Gentiles. I will gather all the nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
So, scattered to the four corners of the earth, scattered across the earth. Let's see what this precept was, what he was talking about, because he's in Joel. So I'm going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 27. I'm going to start there first because these are the blessings and the curses. But I want to keep it in context to let you know who the audience is, who Moses is speaking to. Let's go. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 27, right? This first part says, and Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, keep all the commandments which I command you this day. So the people of Israel is what that's saying. But to get more into detail, let's jump down to verse 9, right? And it says, and Moses and the priest, the Levites, spake unto all Israel, saying, take heed and hearken, O Israel, this day that thou art become the people of the Lord thy Elohim. So he's talking to the people of Israel. And what did he start to give them? He says, thou shalt therefore obey the voice of the Elohim thy God, and do his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. And Moses charged the people the same day, saying, these shall stand upon Mount Gerizim to bless the people when ye are come over Jordan, Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Joseph and Benjamin. And these shall stand upon Mount Ebal to curse Reuben, Gad and Asher and Zebulun, Dan and Naphtali. And the Levites shall speak and say unto all the men of Israel with a loud voice. So the context here is Israel. Now, scattered across the earth, because he said that they would be scattered in Joel. So let's keep this and let's see what this says. Let's go to chapter 28. And we're going to go to 64. Deuteronomy 28 and 64. Here we go. It reads, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Right? So who's going to be scattered? The people of Israel.
Now, God says he will return their recompense upon their own head. If we go to book of Deuteronomy, he talks about putting the curses on Israel's enemies if Israel repents and turns back. But again, you see this reference to them being scattered among the nations. If Joel isn't pulling from Deuteronomy, where is he pulling from? Where else did God say that he was going to scatter them among the nations in the latter days? Because ye have forsaken, or you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. This is verse 5. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians.
Do you know who America has in its possession? No, the Soldier replied. The Americans has the jewels of God. The Americans have stolen God's precious jewels. What do you mean, his precious jewels? The Soldier asked. Hitler said, America has stolen the Jews of God, his jewelry, the Negros. They are the true Hebrews. What a foolish move and a direct challenge to God. And they plan on moving these false white Jews into a state of Israel.
5. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians. Talking about slavery, that ye might remove them far from their border.
Because before being captured by the European, many of them were farmers, merchants, soldiers, musicians, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, and many more. They were husbands, fathers, wives, children, and mothers. They had origins and heritage, but when the Europeans came and took over their communities, they became captives and had to be boarded on large ships and taken to Europe. The European slavers dispersed them across the Americas and different parts of Europe. They were forced to lead lives under terrible conditions and face severe labor conditions. They were stripped and flogged and forced to work very long hours, often under terrible weather and health conditions. The transatlantic slave trade transported between 10 million and 12 million enslaved black Africans across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas.
Once in the Americas, the surviving slaves were sold at a market very similar to the way cattle would be sold. After purchase, slave owners would often brand their new possession on the cheeks, again, just as they would do with cattle. The lives of slaves were dominated by work and terror.
The idea that I am not human, that I have no soul, that I am a beast. Brand me. Burn me.
The slaves were transported across the Sahara Desert, the Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean, while some slaves were also enslaved but remained in Africa. Many of the slaves captured and transported in the transatlantic slave trade were taken from the region bordering the Gulf of Guinea. The slave activities in this region were excessive, that the section of the African coast in countries like Togo, Benin, and Nigeria.
Now, I want y'all to notice something right here. This right here says Negro land. This location is in what they so-call Africa. But we know that Negroes and Africans are the same melanated people, but we're not the same people. You have different nationalities of Asians, different nationalities of Latinos, different nationalities of Europeans. The God who created all did not just make one nationality of melanated people. You have the African and you have the Negro.
Africans and Negroes are two different peoples. Race and skin colour are really a red herring. Okay, it's a kind of divisive lie that has been put about, and I'm going to go into this a bit more in detail. But to separate people by perceived race is a distraction. Okay, so we all think that all black people are the same, basically, but they're not. Africans and Negroes are different. They have a different skeletal structure, different skull shape.
Disbanded Romans eventually became the Brits or the English. And who is it that founded America? They were English rebels. So, yeah, if you guys want to get into that, that's a whole separate study. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your recompense on your own head. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord hath spoken it.
Kingdom of Saba, or as you might know it, Sheba. This was an ancient kingdom in what's now modern-day Yemen, thriving between the 8th century BCE and around 275 CE, when it was eventually conquered by their neighbors, the Himyarites. Now some scholars think Saba might have existed even earlier, maybe as far back as 1200 BCE, but most agree it came to an end by around 275 CE. Now, Saba is probably most famous for the legendary Queen of Sheba, right? You've probably heard the story from the Bible where she visits King Solomon in Jerusalem. It's in the book of Kings and Chronicles. But did you know the story is also told in other places, like the Quran and the Ethiopian Kebra Negist? There are some pretty big differences in these versions though. The Kebra Negist even claims Sheba was in Ethiopia, not Arabia.
It'll say the Sabian source in the link section. And the Sabians were actually tracked to West Africa. Now, isn't that ironic? You guys have heard me say before that I believe God works in irony and sarcasm. But isn't it ironic that the Sabians are traced to West Africa, where the tribe of Judah is, and then Judah gets taken into the transatlantic slave trade, and God said he's going to sell the children of the people who did this into the hands of Judah, and they're going to sell them into the Sabians. So the irony is they came, the Gentiles came, the nations came and took Israel from West Africa. The irony is they will go into slavery and be sold back to West Africa, where they took people from. The Most High is upset about slavery, and you will see language in Joel 3 that reflects that of the book of Revelation. People aren't making this up. It's coming from somewhere. Why would Joel say that the Most High is going to sell their sons and daughters into the hands of the children of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it? He's quoting from Deuteronomy, or he's not quoting, but he's making a statement based on Deuteronomy 30, which is referencing Deuteronomy 28. And we're going to read verses 1 through 7. This is after they have seen the covenant of Deuteronomy 28. In chapter 29, they accept the covenant. And then in chapter 30, starting at verse 1, this is what is said. And again, everything will be consistent if it's truthful. The only time you have to take the Bible out of context or things become messed up and inconsistent is when you take a millennialist approach to interpretation of scripture instead of just reading it plainly and straightforward. Deuteronomy 30 verse 1 through 7. And it shall come to pass, not might, not could, not possibly, it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thy heart, with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee.
I want to speak on that part where he said, where the Lord, our Elohim, shall gather us, right? Because a lot of people feel like they can flee to the land of Africa or whatever to be prepared for the coming of the Messiah. It's called the flee doctrine. But he just said he gonna gather us from wherever we are. Let me get a precept to that. Okay, let's go to Isaiah 11 and verse 12. It reads, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So if he's going to gather you from the four corners of the earth, what do you need to go towards the state of Israel for today? You don't. Let's go.
And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and to them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. So Israel is going to go into slavery, but if Israel turns back and repents, then everybody, the nations, the enemies of Israel that hate them and persecuted them, will now be the recipients of the curses. This is why they don't want us talking about this. This is why we're met with such hostility when black people start saying we're Israel. I'm gonna show they don't want us to be Israel because they know what they've done to us. But we also know that the curses that are supposed to be a sign upon Israel forever, they match the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade.
Absolutely.
People don't want to admit it. They can lie as much as they want to. They can kick, they can scream, they can cry, they can cuss, they can do whatever they want to do. It's not going to change what we know to be true. And a lot of them don't want to believe it because they believed if God was going to make a move, he would include them. But they're too busy trying to put him in their box of religion. They're trying to fit God into their doctrine. And those of us that have awakened to this, a lot of us never put God in the box saying what God can or won't do. We allow God to just move freely how he moves. God doesn't move through the religious leaders. We saw the Pharisees and the Sadducees were the religious leaders of that time, and they were the ones who rejected Jesus. The religious leaders were the ones that rejected the Messiah. They like to say that all Israel did it, but it was the religious leaders that rejected the Messiah.
If you knew the truth was on your side, you wouldn't run away from having these tough conversations. You would openly have them with love and patience. Remember to smash the like button, subscribe, and join the conversation by leaving your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.